Sidney Nolan is one of Australia's most recognised modern artists. While he's no stranger to Australian art history, there are still relationships being identified within his works and stories being unearthed, both about his artworks and the artist himself. For this auction, we've selected just over 200 original works by Sidney Nolan from the estate of Lady Mary Nolan, many of which are being seen by the public for the very first time. In 1962, Nolan and his then-wife Cynthia travelled to Africa for the very first time. Arthur Rimbaud lived in Harare, and Nolan wanted to make the pilgrimage to where his poet hero resided. Nolan produced a series of mostly wildlife paintings and works on paper, featuring elephants, monkeys, zebras, and more, with a tenderness and an air of mystery to them. Many of the resulting paintings were exhibited at Marlborough Gallery in London to rave reviews. In fact, it was one of Nolan's most revered exhibitions critically, although relatively under-acknowledged more broadly until today. Nolan was hired to produce theatre and stage designs for several productions, including Kenneth Macmillan's Rite of Spring from 1962. This was a commissioned recreation of the original ballet from roughly 50 years prior. Traditionally, the original ballet opens with the first promise of spring and explores ritualistic sacrifice. For the 1962 updated version, Nolan and Macmillan took inspiration from the photographs of Axel Poignant, taken during his 6-month stay in central Arnhem Land in 1952. The costumes, set design and choreography were all sourced from the Kunibiji people of central Arnhem Land through Axel Poignant's photography. Nolan utilised his iconic moon boy head for one of the key backdrops of the play. But the Rite of Spring works that we've selected for this auction focus more on the costumes and choreography of the figures. Sidney Nolan was a keen photographer, producing numerous photographs of the harsh conditions of the Australian outback in the early 1950s. These photographs were originally commissioned by the Courier Mail, but deemed to be too graphic, and so Nolan instead produced them as a photographic exhibition, which we now know as the Drought series. These photographs depicted dwellings, the dry landscape, and even animal carcasses, all to document the harsh conditions of life on the land in Central Australia. We're delighted to be presenting over 200 works by Sidney Nolan, exploring diverse themes, many of which you may know and love already, and others perhaps less familiar. It presents a great opportunity to reacquaint yourself with the work of Sidney Nolan, or perhaps acquire a work of Nolan's for yourself.